I've been told by everybody up on this roof that they're all off the roof. I am on the roof of exposure 4. Got fire through the roof of the fire building in the entire rear section.
Now remember, given the payday, has he been accounted for? Okay.
610B. That was the Mayday. 610B.
I'm here. We got a fire. 1.5-story, single-family dwelling. Fire shown from the second floor. Give me a second alarm on this.
Coming up to the top floor. I got people hanging out the top floor windows with a baby.
Commercial building. A lot of fire, a lot of smoke. Go ahead and strike a third alarm on my orders on this.
Got people on the front fire escape here with windows vented below them. We need somebody up there.
Yeah, let them know we got a job. I'm pulling up now. Second alarm, I got a 1-story single-family frame. Heavy fire showing from the attic.
So we're using all hands. We got one line stretch, fire on the 4th floor. Second line being stretched. Primary searches are underway.
Hey, welcome back to Old School. I'm Chief Rick Lasky, along with my best buddy. I don't want to say partner in crime because we're not criminals, but my best bud, Chief John Salka, and who's you can't see him, but he's doing his grandpa duties. He's not quite Mickey Conboy yet with 136 grandchildren, but he's working his way. So he's got one he's rocking, another one watching Sesame Street on the floor, and everything else going on. But we've got a great show for you today. Just a reminder, I'll be posting later on. Do not forget to register for FDIC. And if you're coming to our 5-alarm leadership, real leadership where people workshop on Monday, the seats go fast, especially for that program. It's ripped right out of our book, our leadership book. And you asked for it, we brought it back. So don't wait, because it happened last year. We're doing a 3 degrees of Mayday, which we're doing on Wednesday, by the way. Again, the class filled up and they shut the doors, per code, and only allow so many people in there. So make sure you get registered early for our workshop at for 5-alarm leadership at FDIC in a couple months in April. That being said, we've got an awesome. When I say awesome guest, forget that for a moment. And one of our best friends. Now, I'm going to have to mute him because he's going to tell me to shut up because I'm going to do some bragging about him right now. But he's an incredibly close friend to my good buddy, Chief John Salka. He's one of my good friends. I love him dearly. Chief Butch Cobb, and I'm going to read you his bio. And he told me, you don't have to read it all, but I told him, be quiet. I'm going to read a lot of it. So Butch served with the Jersey City, New Jersey Fire Department for 34 years. And if you know Jersey City, I remember John used to say, look, if you want to come ride Rescue 3, that's great. But if you want to go to fires like all day long, go across to Jersey City, because they fight fires all day long there. But during his career with the department, Butch served as a firefighter and a captain in some of the busiest units: Engine 20, Engine 22, Ladder 5, and Rescue 1. And that was the Rescue 1 in Jersey City. That being said, after his promotion to battalion chief, the department assigned Chief Cobb command of the 2nd Battalion. Upon his promotion to deputy chief, the department appointed him chief of operations for Jersey City. Butch also held the positions of chief of training, one of his passions, citywide tour commander, and deputy coordinator of the OEM and Homeland Security. After retiring, Chief Cobb joined ISO, where he did incredible things. In fact, John, you and I talked about it. Butch is already going to help me with Estes Valley. He already pulled all their paperwork. Is going to help me. Back in 2010, when he was very heavily involved with ISO, he was promoted to the national director, which was huge there. In addition to his career fire department experience, he was a volunteer firefighter and past fire chief of District 4 in West Milford Township, New Jersey, and past chief of Dumont, New Jersey Fire Department. Butch is a Vietnam veteran, having served with the 1st Aviation Brigade in Vietnam in 68, 69. And again, when John and I talk about him in our classes, and if you've been to our classes, we always talk about Butch. I don't think there's a class that John Salk and I teach where we don't have a leadership story about our friend Butch Cobb. But I always refer to, here's a guy that you would never, ever, ever, ever know it, who's got like medals down past his toes. He's one of the most humble dudes that we know. He's one of the most passionate people about the fire service we know. And he's got a topic today that we had talked about, and we all three of us said this has to be a podcast, especially for old school. And it's a new program that he's going to be teaching for a lot of the organizations. I would bet in a heartbeat that Sue, our good friend at the New York State Chiefs, would like grab him in a second for this because he's taught for her for decades. He's going to be all actually in a great way all over. You'll know when I give you the title, all over the country doing his program. But his program's titled Beyond the Flames: A Successful Journey Through PTSD. And Butch is going to walk us through why he got to this point where he wanted to share his story. But Butch, I'm throwing it back. All right, I'll take you off mute because you told me not to read all that. But welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you, and congratulations on your new position of chief in SD Valley. I'm very proud of you, and I'll be one of your first visitors.
Oh, thanks, brother. I was so excited when you said your wife has friends there. I'm like, oh, John knows that. I said, here, I can't wait to get Butch there, like some other people, and show you off and introduce you to our staff and to my bosses. And we talk about the fire service all the time. All of us has served. John and I both currently serve as volunteer firefighters and on the career side. The career staff, are incredible. I talk about all the time. I have the dream team. Which kind of makes me nervous because, John always says nothing's that good. You got to be careful. But I'm like, I don't know. They're pretty damn good, man. And then I've got a group of volunteers that are phenomenal, Butch. These men and women are like, they're falling over themselves to get the calls. They're dedicated. They have fun. I mean, it's just, I taught for them last February, and the energy that I got from the members is why I wanted it. Really, I didn't even see the mountains because I got there at night and taught when it was dark out, in the morning. I wanted to be part of that fire department. I wanted to be, me, I want to be part of something special. And God blessed us. God bless us. So we're heading there. But Butch, now real quick before we get going. So what are you doing lately? I know you're bouncing around doing different things. I know people still, all the time, they call you to come do everything from tactics to strategy to leadership to everything else. But give us an update and how many grandkids compared to John Salka do you have going on? So
I only have 4. I have 3 boys back in Goodyear, Arizona, and 1 5-year-old here at Delaney, who I'm hanging out with this week in Upper St. Clair, which is a suburb of Pittsburgh. So, to tell you the truth, Rick, I've kind of cut back quite a bit. There was something about turning 75 a couple months ago that made me say, listen, maybe not time to hang up the fire service, but
you would never know that. You're seriously, you're like John. Age doesn't matter. I'm telling you, dude. You're like, well, a lot of young guys don't know him. You're like Dick Clark. I look at pictures of you from fire pictures and stuff, and there's no difference. There's no difference.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but yeah. So I really haven't been doing too much. Been doing maybe 2 or 3 conferences now a year, and a couple local things, but and I did a fundraiser up in Massachusetts not too long ago. It was for an organization that raised money for cops and firemen that need some help. But I've done 3 or 4 fundraisers, and I do fundraisers for free. Just get me there, fly me there, give me a couple of beers, a cup of coffee in the firehouse, and raise some money, and I'm good. But for those kind of things, I don't take a dime. And I make sure that 100% of their profit goes to what they say. So I do a few of them, but I'm really kind of cutting back. But I'll see you guys at the FDIC, I hope, and then the New York State Chiefs in June. If Sue sees something that she likes and invites me, I'll go back there, because that's New York State Chiefs is kind of old school for me. You get you get all the old timers telling stories, and the stories they get better and better every year. I mean, the Lombardo stories, the Pressler stories. I was talking with Timmy Clinton, his sons last year. I mean, the stories are just. I love it when some of the old timers speak, sitting in a bar having a couple of drinks, telling stories, and it's like 5 of you, and all of a sudden, half hour later, there's 40 people, shoulder to shoulder, listening to these stories.
Butch, we talk about John. Talk about 2 things I want John to chime in here about. One is just what Butch said, John, about Chief Joe, when he does the Joey D Memorial symposiums with the bailout harnesses and belts, the Friday night before class, John, I always talk about that. Talk about, when we were there and I was there with you on Long Island, and Friday night, I remember standing next to Joe Downey, and all these guys, Butch, are coming up to the podium, John and John. So some of the guys that were there, I kept leaning over to Joe going, you remember the movie Field of Dreams, Butch? And when Archie Graham, the kid, walks over the field, goes, "That's Shoeless Joe Jackson. That's Mel Ott. That's and he was awestruck. I'm standing there looking at Joe Downey going, "Do you know who that is?" He goes, "Yeah, I know who that is." I go, "Do you know who that is?" And everybody had a story. John, who was so that night? One of your favorite Chiefs, Chief Kennedy, right? There were so many great people there that night.
Yeah, Tom Kennedy was there. He's a legend in the job. He's one of the guys I tried to learn from and model myself off of, and he's also a guy I tried to please. That sounds odd, but when he was running the fire and I was lieutenant in the squad or wherever I was, he was no doubt who was in command and what he wanted. He was always very clear and very he always took command, which was, he's one of the guys I learned that from. You meet some of these other chiefs, they get a little wishy-washy or they get a little soft-spoken about things, and Tom was always right there. He always knew where he was and what was going on and what he wanted from you. That was great. And he's one of the guys that appeared at these gatherings that Joe puts on, in the hotel and in one of the meeting rooms the night before. And they bring along some of their old buddies from 82 and 31 years ago and Rescue 3. And like you said, they'd get up one at a time and start telling, I don't like to say telling tales, because tales, when you say word tales, it sounds like it might not be true, but they were relating stories of stuff that they went through and things that they did that are even to a guy like me that was on a job, and I was on a job for 33 years, and still some of those stories to me are astonishing.
Well, it was funny because they get going on, Butch, halfway through it, I was either laughing at a story or I was wanting to put my face piece on, because I was waiting for it to light up on me in the conference room. I was crawling hallways with them, and just it was incredible. So, John, second thing, you often talk about it. You and Butchie go way back. Let's just reminisce about that a little bit. Your relationship with Butch Cobb, our good friend Chief Butch Cobb. I know you talk about your connection with him to your Worcester family and what happened back in Worcester and what you guys did. But talk a little bit about your relationship with Butch, because that's so important. There's so many great people in the fire service, and we often overlook the relationship part of. We talk brother and sister stuff, but then we don't talk about why. And you talk about Butch all the time in a great way, and you love him. But I mean, how did that all start between you two?
We really, so many people I know in the fire service, including guys in the FDNY, along with guys outside, of course. I met through Harvey, through Firehouse Magazine, through teaching and traveling and writing. Harvey's fingerprints are all over the fire service. They're all over the FDNY. I'll tell you that. There's guys that went all the way to chief of department that were friends with him and taught with him and got speaking opportunities through him or writing opportunities through him. And Butch and I are two of those guys. Like I say that all the time. I said, if it wasn't for Harvey Eisner, there'd be no John Salka out there writing articles or writing books or doing the things I do.
What the hell would I do then? I'd be like lonely. I'd be turning going, and there'd be nobody there to turn to and say, "What do you think, John?"
Yeah. You'd still be right where you are. You would be.
Yeah.
But it's like it's a wonderful life, the guy that wished he never was born, and somebody was able to show him what the world would be like if he never was born. But Harvey's that guy. Harvey is that guy. There are so many people out there. Listen, even a guy like Vinnie Dunn, who is famous and he's a legend in his own right. But you know what? Harvey's the guy that opened up the magazine to him. Harvey's the guy that published him and put his name out there, Wow. So, and that's how Butch and I met. We met through Harvey and through teaching and through seminars and stuff like that. And it was just, and what it is there's hundreds and hundreds of speakers and there's thousands of people at these conferences. And once in a while, you just you just click in and you just meet a guy or a gal, and they're like,
yeah. You just click.
yep, and you have a connection. All of a sudden, you become friends, and you see each other again. Before you know it, I mean, he's been to my house, I've been to his house, and then of course, you mentioned Worcester. Butch was really the driving force behind everything that happened up in Worcester after the tragedy. Obviously, the tragedy occurred, and the guys there carried a heavy load. They carried a heavy load. They did a lot of work up there, and they got to a I don't know, almost an insurmountable, event.
Yeah.
But they did. And one of the things that Butch introduced after it was all over was, hey, let's do some training. Let's get some drills going on here about this and about that. And and he can tell you more. You should give him an opportunity to talk about that while we're on. And that whole series of seminars that we had and stuff like that, that was all hatched by Butch. He's the one that got all that stuff going.
Well, and I remember, obviously you introduced me to Butch a long time ago, and then since then it's always been we're talking and bumping into each other and visiting on the phone and stuff. But Butch, as we're walking down this path, and we're going to be talking about your program a little bit. I don't want to pass by what you guys did for Worcester after that tragedy. It's just, I mean, it's one of those horrific things that the pain that they went through and the heartbreak, but you guys did some pretty awesome. And John always says, my buddy Butch, you got this thing going. What did you guys do for our listeners with Worcester?
Well, I'm going to try to capsulize it. I was sitting at my computer one day. It was after the event at Worcester. And I had gone up there with a good friend of mine, Lenny Ribicki, and we stood outside the fence. We had our gear in the car. We just had this sense, let's go up and see. We were in the rescue together. So anyway, come back from all that, and I'm sitting on my computer a long time ago. So this is before text message and all this. So I got thing rings on my computer, and it's from Lieutenant Andy White. And I'm thinking, I don't know this guy, but I opened it up, and he says, I'm a lieutenant in Worcester. He said, I've been reading your articles. I saw some of your training on rescue and trapped firefighters and blah, blah, blah. And I had a company back then. It was called Surviving the Fireground, LLC. So he said, could you give me a call? So I called him and talked on the phone. And what happened is I said, I'll come up and, I'll take a look at everything and we could chat about it. And so I went up and I met Mike McNamee, who was the chief who saved so many guys at that incident. I talked to everybody, looked at what they did, listened, and there's a whole story to that, listening to what they did. But and I brought Mickey Conboy with me because Mickey and I at the time we were traveling together. We were doing a hands-on training program. Mickey was a volunteer fireman in Dumont when I was the chief in Dumont. So we've been friends forever and ever. So I go up there with Mickey, and we looked at everything, and when it was all said and done, they wanted us to kind of write a program, a new training program for rescuing a trapped, disoriented, or lost firefighter is what it was called. So anyway, I'm talking to Mickey, and I said, listen, why don't we put something together, a weekend program, like me and you, and maybe I'll get another guy, and if we can raise $1,000, $1,500, we'll give it to the wives and kids. So I went to a couple guys that the union was heavily involved in this from the beginning, and told Andy, and he said, oh yeah, good idea. So I said to Mickey, okay. I said, you know what? I said, me and you, maybe we'll do like a Friday night and a Saturday. And I reached out. I was going to reach out to a couple of the guys, and I think I reached out to John, and I'm trying to think who else at the time. But my memory's a little foggy. But anyway, so we started building this little weekend seminar, and I went to Harvey, and I said, listen, any chance you could give us a little line or something in the magazine? And he goes, yeah, sure. So he did, and the guys from Worcester called up and said, hey, we already got like 100 people.
Wow.
Said they want to come. Yeah. So I said, oh, geez, great, and I'll fast forward. Harvey gave us like a quarter page or a half page in the magazine. I called John. John, obviously he said yes right away. I called Vinny Dunn. Vinny said I'm in. No questions asked. Nobody looked at a calendar. It was such a traumatic event. not only for Worcester, I think for a lot of the fire, eye-opening event for the fire service. So anyway, I called John, Vinnie Dunn, John Norman, Mike Smith out of Washington, D.C. Who else was there, John? Mark McLeese, who was in the rescue in Syracuse at the time. Mickey, myself. I don't want to leave anybody out. But
What a lineup. What a lineup.
But, you know, here's the thing. Every guy I called, except one, said, absolutely, I'm coming. And I said, listen, this is on your own dime. There's no money. And every one of them said, without hesitation, put me in. All right.
Wow.
Now, a little backstory to this. I called Ray Downey. And he said, I would love to, Butch. He goes, it's so great. But he said to me, he was involved with getting the USAR program up and running. And he was just so engaged with that and so busy. So he said to me, write me in for next year. If you're going to do it a second year, I'll be there.
Wow.
Put me down. So anyway, the short story to that is Ray Downey, and again, there was no emails and stuff. So Ray said he'd send me his program right away, you know. And I got you know, I don't know how to put this, but my wife handed me the envelope a couple days after 9/11, and the postmark for Ray Downey's program was stamped September 11th, 2001, and it sits in that envelope, and you know, but that was Ray. So we did this, and what happened after Harvey got involved, we had 1,120 people show up for that seminar, and they had to move it from the high school to another place, and then finally they had to move it to the big indoor, I guess, basketball stadium, whatever it was, in Worcester. We had 1,120 people in the audience.
Holy cow!
For the first weekend seminar. That's how much it touched the fire service. I think there were guys there from like 35 states, in Canada, and you know what? It was so successful, and 100% of the money went to the wives and kids, like instantly. Boom, they took care of that. And then somebody said, "Hey, why don't we do it a second time?" And you know what it involved? It began as 1 year, and we wound up doing it 6 years, one for each guy,
one for each guy.
family.
And John said, and I remember Butch. John's like, "Yeah, we're going up there." He goes, "Butch's biggest challenge is so many great guys want to be part of it. You know, so many great, like, hey, I'll come do it for free. I'll come teach for you
every year."
But you know, I know it's like running a conference. You got to be careful. You'll run out of room and run out of, you know, you'll be squeezing so much in that the programs will be so short that guys will go, I wish there was more. And the quality kind of, but how awesome is that? So many great people are like, Chief Cobb, Butchie, I'll come, I'll do it. You know, just what time am I supposed to be there? I'll get my way there or whatever.
But there's the epitome of brotherhood. I mean, no questions asked. Tremendous tragedy. But then, John? When did we start the hands-on? The second year?
John, did you guys start the hands-on the second year?
I don't remember.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
But they had a vacant hospital with like 5 or 6 buildings.
That I remember.
Then we had hands-on guys come, and every program you could think of, we did. We had I think the Massachusetts USAR team. We had USAR guys from Florida come up, all on their own time. I mean,
there was a lot going on there. A lot of guys from different places.
And you know, I'll say this because we're about to jump into this topic.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of ways that people can heal. There's a lot of ways people, you know, and in the fire service, we always feel cheated, right? When we lose a brother or sister, we always feel like we were cheated out of time with them. There wasn't enough time, or because unlike some of the people we lose due to cancer, and we know, you know, this is coming, so on and so forth. A lot of times we don't know. Look what just happened. You know, Loudon, just what happened in Minnesota.
Yeah.
You know, the 2 cops and the firefighter paramedic, which I don't know why the news says, God bless them, 2 police officers and a first responder. Why don't you say it's a firefighter? But anyway, that being said, they had no idea. John says it all the time. They didn't get up that morning going, well, today's my last day. So here you have a traumatic event at the time. It still is, that you are allowed to offer some, that's a way to heal. It's like, we're doing it on their behalf. We're doing it in their name. We're helping their families but in their name, we're training other firefighters how to stay healthy, stay alive. You know what I'm saying? It's what a great tribute. And I think, Butch, that helps people heal. That helps, and you guys, you know what? This is why I give you credit. A lot of people ruin conferences because they just try, we're going to do this for 20 years. And it's a lot. I think a lot of ego gets involved where they like saying, I run the Butch Cobb, John Salka conference. And, you guys did it for the 6 years, one for each year. And you said, we're done. We did what we set out to do. And it was a great, and you guys could still be doing it, but I thought that was such a classy thing that you said we had an impact, and we hit our mission. We completed what we wanted to do.
Yeah, and Rick, part of this was speaking to the Worcester guys. It was, it was all they could do. 6 years was all they could do, because you can imagine every year.
Oh.
With the six pictures up there and speaking about, so it was a combination of perfect timing, one for each guy, and they pretty much, it was tough for them. I sometimes I wondered how they got through. Every year there were a lot of tears, but what spawned from that was it ended in 2006, I think. 2000. Yeah, we started ended in 2006. But every year since then, the core group from Worcester, the core group of guys from the union, and me and John and Mickey and a couple other guys, we have met every year since then. And it started out. We met the first week in December every year. We're still doing it. We're still doing it.
That's why, and that's how I was going. You guys are still meeting. John goes, hey.
Yeah.
I got to run up. Butchie's we do this every year. They were teaching. There's a group, we get together. And all right, so let's do this, Butch. Let's do this. We're talking about your new program, Beyond the Flames, a successful journey through PTSD. All right, let's talk about Chief Butch Cobb and what brought you to want to make a difference in other people's lives. What brought you to that point you want to do your program?
So a couple of things. One, I've been through it. And more than once, and I always kept it kind of a secret. And I guess it was kind of an ego thing. I didn't want anybody to know that, it just seemed like to me, at the beginning, I felt like it was a weak spot in me, and I didn't want to share it with anybody. So I was very secretive about it. I went to therapy without telling anybody. And being a Vietnam veteran, I had the greatest organization for PTSD in the world, and that was the Veterans Administration. They are the center of the universe for PTSD, and I wouldn't go there. I just said to myself, I'm not going there. Maybe an ego thing. I was, just getting back from Vietnam for me was successful.
Well, and let me just say, if we think that people are hesitant now, even though we've turned the corner and we're a lot more proactive about mental health awareness, walking home from Vietnam, that wasn't something that people, it was, I know when my brother passed away, in the 70s, when he was 9, I was, 13, and there were no counselors for kids back then, let alone adults. So you're coming back from Vietnam with not a whole lot of opportunity or proactiveness when it comes to what you guys went through. So go ahead, buddy. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And it really didn't. I came back from Vietnam in '69, and it didn't hit me until like '82, Rick. I had the classic flashback in 1982 after all those years, and it just hit me like with a ton of bricks. But I wouldn't go to the VA because I would, I'll tell you a quick story. I finally, after the drinking and jettisoning all my friends and everything, I finally called the EAP, the Employee Assistance Program, which Jersey City had for a long, long time. And they said it was confidential. So I called, they gave me the name of a doctor. I called the doctor, Dr. Hill, and he said, okay, I can see you in 2 days. I said, where's your office? And he said, the Jersey City Medical Center. And I said, I can't go there. And I said, why? I said, because somebody will see me. So he goes, all right. He goes, I have an office in Bayonne, which is the next town over. I said, no, half my guys live in Bayonne. I'm not going there either. So I said, listen, he said, I work with cops and firemen. I kind of understand. He said, I live in Hallworth, New Jersey. Sometimes I see see guys in my little office or my living room. I said, perfect. I said, I live in Dumont, which is the next town over. And I went to his house. I didn't want anybody to see me. So that's just kind of how it was back then. You know, there was that incredible stigma of when you were a firefighter, you know, it was like, tough it up, you know, tough it out.
And
You know,
Butch,
what's wrong with you? So,
and I told you the story, you know this before we went live, and John knows the story. When I was a cop earlier in my life, you know, I always tell people I sucked at being a cop because my first year as a cop, I got shot, stabbed, and burned. I really sucked at it. I ran into a burning building because I was a firefighter with my plastic police uniform, burned myself. I got stabbed in the wrist at a bar fight. And I got shot through the windows of the police station. I told you earlier, when I went through the mandatory counseling, I did everything I could to get through as quickly as I could because I was the only one working that night besides Kenny Lubin that wasn't a Vietnam vet. And I thought I was a coward or a sissy or you know, and I paid, I told you, I won't get into, I paid the price after that for that. And I didn't have the mentors. I didn't have, and I am going to tell this story, John. You know, John and I share this story in class all the time, and I'm going to do it right now, Butch. So, you know, we're at John's son's, he's got 5 kids. And when James, his Marine Corps major, when he got married up in Poughkeepsie, you know, we were all there. And at our table is, you know, you and your wife, my wife Jamie and I, and Jay Jonas and his wife, and Mickey Conboy and Krista Lizzie. It was a great table. And after the wedding, we're at the reception and we're sitting around. And you remember this, and everybody's talking. There's dancing going on, everything else. And you lean over and I always told John, I hope Butch don't mind me telling this story in class, but you have had an impact on firefighters that you don't even know. You have no idea how many firefighters you have an impact on. And I said, so Butch leans over and says, you know, Ricky, I'm going through counseling again. I go, oh, that's great, Butch. That's great. And you go, you know, the best thing about going through counseling, and I'm in my head, I'm going, you get to talk to someone. I go, you get to talk. You go, no, I can't tell how many young firefighters that come up to me and said, and went home and told their spouse, said, look, if it's okay for Butch, one of the bravest dudes I know, to go talk to someone, I guess it's okay for me. And I've had people come up in class after that story, Butch, and go, I'm that guy, man. I'm the one that never wanted to go, and I want people to talk about me. My guys are gonna think I can't lead them anymore, and you know, it's all that stuff. And he goes, it's not. And he goes, I've had guys say, I'm going. You know what? I go, if you met Butch and you loved him like I do, and you knew look, he's a sweetheart, but he is a tough, badass dude. If he's willing to say, hey, I'm going to go talk to someone, I had to intercept there and tell that because it's such a great story about Butch Cobb, our friend, and the impact you're on someone's life because of your, you know, we haven't even talked about 9/11 for you. You know, that was huge, Butch. I had to throw that in there because you're changing people's lives and you don't even know it.
yeah. And, you know, I saw it a little bit because after I said that, and you know, after 9/11, guys called me up and said, Chief, thanks. You know, I really didn't want to go, but you know, because of what you said, so that kind of made me feel a little bit better. But you know, I feel a little bad because I waited so long to put this program together. And you know what? Really the point of this program is just you know, kind of what I wrote. There's really hope because the symptoms of PTSD don't have to last forever. If you just reach out to somebody, start the process, you know, if you've been going through for 6 weeks or 6 years, there's definitely hope. There are so many programs out there now.
Butch, do you feel, Butchie, that's the hardest thing? The first step is do you think the hardest step is the reaching out, making that call? Do you think that's the hardest?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, and the flip side of this is so many people look at you and recognize that there's something different going on, but they don't say anything. So, you know, it's kind of a twin thing that you've got to realize that something has to be done. And then somebody on the other side, you know, whether it's your boss at work or a friend, just notices something that's just off a little bit, you know, bring it up. I mean, people have said to me, well, I knew that there was something going on, but I didn't want to say anything to him. And it ruined our friendship. But, well, would you rather ruin your friendship at that moment than have him do something drastic and really go off the deep end?
Well, you see the pictures all the time on social media of someone standing at a grave going, I wish I would have said something, or why didn't you tell me? And I'm like, well, sometimes all the signs, all the red flags are there, and we're so busy on our smartphones nowadays, or not paying. We've got people right in front of us, Butch. I asked Paul to do a drawing of a firefighter sitting at the kitchen table, and across him is a male, female, male firefighter, brother, sister, brother. And on him, Butch, he's got all these notes: PTSD, family problems, kid ran away, dependency, all the financial problems. Yeah. And he's got a big red blinking clown nose that says help. And you look across at his brother, his two brothers and his sister in the firehouse. He's at the kitchen table and they're all on their phones. And we're right in front of ourselves sometimes and we don't see it. Like you said, or we don't want to say anything because we don't want to get someone mad right. Don't you feel if you're truly a brother or sister or a friend, then you'll risk all that to help someone, right?
Exactly. You know what? I'd rather ruin a relationship with a good friend or even a relative, and have them go for help than not at all. You know, if given a choice, well, I'm going to go for help, but I never want to see you again. Okay, fine. That's when I had the instance with the guy that was the best man in my wedding, Bert Phillips. I jettisoned all my friends after 9/11. I didn't want to talk to anybody anymore. You know, because and that's a whole other story. You know, that was like a case of just feeling failure for a couple of years. But he kind of came down from Boston, came into my house. I was downstairs in my family room, and really didn't want to talk to him, but I did. And you know what? That was the moment in time for me that decided, you know, I got to do something. You know, this guy drove all the way down, took off from work, literally broke into my house almost, and to come sit on a couch and talk with me. So
it's just, and the impact, like I told you about my son, an FMF corpsman, a Navy Fleet Marine Force corpsman. So he was attached to the Marines in Afghanistan. And when he came back after doing his tours, he did 6 years. You know, he works for Lockheed Martin. You know, and he's very open about his PTSD and stuff from some of the bad things that went on. But he was actually, they brought him back. This big 1-star wanted him to come back to Great Lakes and work at the hospital. He's got all his medals. He's a combat veteran. He's a corpsman, and he's telling me the story. But he's on the phone with another vet that's in the parking lot. He called him, and he's running with his phone, trying to go get to this guy. And by the time he got to him, the guy had taken his own life in the car. And he goes, Dad, he goes, I feel like I failed. I go, you know, it's all about you can't help someone that doesn't ask to be helped or doesn't tell you. You know, there's a lot of people, right, there's a lot of Butch Cobbs that are walking around out there that are worried about, like you said, and if we don't know, that's the whole point of your program. And what you share is say something. You know, I mean, it's okay. What are we teaching the academy now? We're telling young firefighters, Butchie, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to talk to someone. That's why I thought your story was so important. So walk us through, like, your class. If I brought you to my department, if I brought you to Estes Valley in Colorado or Wichita West or now, what are some of the things you would be telling and talking to our men and women about your experience, about your program?
Well, the first two things I say are, one, that, you know, that there's hope. It doesn't have to last forever because there's so much out there. And the other thing I think, which maybe is a little bit different in my program, is I had a great therapist who took all the negative things I was thinking about, all the negative things, the things I wouldn't do because I was afraid. I had a therapist turn that around, and somehow or another, he got me to channel all the bad into something good. And what he wanted me to do was to pick something in my life that I wanted to do, and not related to family or kids or anything like that. And I had been a fireman for a long time in Jersey City. I was almost afraid to take a test. And he got me to channel all the negative into positive. And I turned into a fanatical studier. And I was on a job probably 75 to 80, 88, I think.
Yeah.
And I started studying to the point where it was irritating to people. I'd walk around with 20, 25 3x5 cards with a question on the front and the answer on the back. And reading books, I could give you chapter and verse out of Brunacini's Incident Command book, chapter and verse out of Vinnie Dunn's Collapse of Burning Buildings, chapter and verse out of John Norman's book. I was just 20 hours a day. I was studying, and then I took the captain's test, and I was real fortunate. I came out 1 on the captain's test, and we didn't have lieutenants at the time. But that was all because I learned how to channel the negative into what I call post-traumatic stress success. That's like I use that term in my program, post-traumatic stress success, and my story about how I did that. And I think a lot of people talk about post-traumatic stress, but I don't hear many people talking about succeeding, taking that.
Well, that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up, because you're exactly right. There's a lot of scary experts, firefighters that go through a class. They go through a class and they come home and they make their own PowerPoint presentation. And it's okay to share. Like, if you came to my department, I would hope my training chief would take what you taught and share it, with those, but not go out and start working the circuit, because there's doctors that don't even know what the answer
Right.
to that, So, but that's such a great point. We talk about it. It's like when we do our Mayday class, Butch, there's a point at the end we call returning to normalcy, because everybody does these Mayday classes, Mayday, do all stuff, and then it's done. And I go, wait a minute, we still have a job to finish here. We came here, and it's like just what you said. We talk about it, but we don't talk about climbing out of it and actually the success stories. And there are a bunch of, we think if you have PTSD, I think that's a scary thing. That's it. You're done. Your whole life's over. And even though sometimes like my son will have it for the rest of his life, but the VA, you said it, the VA helps him all the time. He sees counselors and he manages it that way. But nobody ever talks about the success. I think that's such a great point you brought up, buddy.
Yeah, and a lot has to do with the VA, because I eventually went to the VA for all the programs that they have. I got to look at my notes because my memory is terrible. But things like cognitive behavioral therapy. That was they're the best at it. They're the best in the world. I mean, look at all the examples they have to use. I mean, all these soldiers coming back. And just a quick plug. My therapist at the VA. I asked her. I said, it's kind of embarrassing. I said, at my age, to come in here and start talking about this. And she said to me, 70% of her patients are Vietnam veterans, my age, and this is going back 10 years. And she said, we can't get the kids from Iraq and Afghanistan to come in. They just, whatever the reason is. Yeah.
But so I know you know who this is, you being a soldier. He's a good friend of mine. I love him dearly. But Colonel Bruce Crandall, for our listeners, if you saw the movie We Were Soldiers with Mel Gibson, the helicopter pilot, the captain, snake shit, right? Bruce Crandall, he's a Medal of Honor recipient. He's one of my heroes. I use him in class. I call him to check up on him. When he retired from the Army, he ended up for like 25 years. He's a public works director, Olympia, Washington. And we were on a plane ride together for 4 hours, Butch. And I was just, I don't get giddy over many people, right? I was giddy over him. I was like, if you read his bio, if you saw him sitting next to you, you go, what a nice looking grandpa. And then you read his bio and you go, 750 missions. The guy, by God, believable. And what he brought up, he said, Rick, he goes, look, I was a lifer in Vietnam. I was not drafted. That was my thing. He goes, and I did my, whatever, back then it was like, what, year and a half, another year, whatever. He says, I'm working with veterans right now, Afghanistan veterans that are on their 13th and 14th deployment. Now, granted, they're 8 months at a crack sometimes, but that's 13, 14 back and forth of things you're seeing. He goes, we have a ticking time bomb. That's just what he said. He goes, if we don't step up and figure a way to coax them, like you just said, coax them into this down the road, we're going to have a huge ticking time bomb. And I'm glad you brought that up as well, because how right was that statement, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And that ticking time bomb went off. I mean, the suicide rate with veterans is unbelievable. It's off the chart.
Well, didn't you say, Butch, though, because a lot of people don't know, you as the ops chief in Jersey City, you responded mutual aid right away through the tunnel on 9/11. And I know you told me the story, and I don't want to bring up bad memories for you because it's a horrible day. But you told me that story. You responded through. Actually, one of your dispatchers got killed. A lot of people don't know about the Jersey City dispatcher got killed 9/11. But being there and witnessing it, and then you made it, you lived through the first one, and you witnessed it again, and you saw FDNY guys lose their lives. And I remember you telling me it kind of rocketed me back to Vietnam, and I said, I got to go back to counseling. It was like the trigger. Now, granted, it's a huge event for some people. It could be their father dying that they're so close to it. It was horrible and traumatic and huge as 9/11 was, and we know that was a horrible event. We lost so many great people. Sometimes, Butch, right? It's the last baby call, right? It's like I just had another infant CPR, and it's that trigger, right? You talked about this before. What do you? So talk about the triggering part of it, the variations. They don't,
That's something they start talking about right away, and they work on right away. They have programs to eliminate the triggers. And one of the programs I went through was picking. I did it like I think twice, where you pick the worst the worst scenario that has happened in your life. And I went back to the VA after 9/11, and so they picked the worst. I had to walk through the worst moments of being there, and every day for like 6 weeks, or not every day, once a week for 6 or 7 weeks, I'd go in and repeat the story over and over again, and my therapist would tape it and take it home, and you had to listen to it at home. And what happened was, you talked about it so much that it wasn't a trigger anymore. You could talk about it freely. Yeah, it taught your brain to, you know what, don't scare the hell out of them, because you talk about it so much, it became like you and I talking right now. So that's just one of their programs, and it's one of the things that I try to explain that are out there, that there are ways to make a trigger almost disappear. I mean,
well, and so many guys, Butch, will talk they'll talk about what it is, and that will actually trigger something because they don't have the follow-up. They don't have the means, the VA, or they don't have the counseling, stuff set up with their own organization. They don't have the ability. And I think sometimes we say you need to talk about it, but if you don't have part two, it's one thing to talk with your buddies at the firehouse, the guys and gals you work with, but you have to have part two. You have to have the ability, like, and I know you love the VA because they're incredible. I wish the VA does a great job for our servicemen and women. The people above them don't do a good job taking care of the VA. It's my good buddy Marcus Luttrell, that from Lone Survivor, the Navy SEAL, said. I remember him telling me, Ricky, he goes, if our politicians had the same healthcare that our vets had, we'd have a different system. And but I think how important, Butch, is it to connect those two? Because it's one thing to tell your story to someone else, but to not have the ability to speak with a professional, I think sometimes guys don't know what the next step is or how to do it, because a lot of places are still living in caves 150 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, talk about that connection. It has to be there.
Yeah. There's got to be, every fire department in the country right now should have some type of way for you to connect to get help. And I have to give a shout out to Jersey City. Paul Drennan is a retired deputy chief. He's had some traumatic events in his life, and he decided to do something about it. And he started he created the FDJC peer support group with the help of his cousin, Stevie Drennan, who was also a deputy chief and now is chief of department in Jersey City. And, they went to the chief at the time, Steve McGill, and he said, yeah, run with this. Now, their support group has grown so much, and I'm going to be an integral part of it soon. And it's now open statewide. There are fire departments from all over the state of New Jersey that call Stevie up and say, listen, can you come and talk to my guys? We had this happen. Or a lot of departments, for preventative reasons, are saying, could you come speak to my department before something happens?
Well, and that goes back to the academy, right? To the probies, where they need a Butch Cobb to show up on a day in the academy and introduce you. And you know, here in walks this, and I know you hate this word, and I don't give a shit. In walks this legend, this legend in the fire service. Look, you're one of my idols, buddy. I love you. You're my brother. You're one of my very good friends. But I adore you and your personality, your friendship, but your experience. When Chief Butch Cobb walks in, and then when you tell your story, I've often thought about that. Could you imagine if you walk Butch into an academy class? If he's having the impact in our classes by me telling your story, could you imagine the impact and telling guys ahead of time? You're gonna see stuff. What a firefighter sees is not normal. It's not normal to hold dead babies in your arm and burnt up bodies, a severed arm, and people scream over that you're cutting out a car, or CPR on someone's kid with a mom's over you. It's not normal for that. And to say ahead of time, Butch, like you said, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to go talk to someone. There should be fire academies calling you, going, "What would it take to get you out here to have you walk in one day and just spend a morning with our candidates?" And I think that what, like you said before, you know, it's like to say no to drugs. How about that campaign works quite often because we're telling little kids before they become big kids, you know.
I'm really happy to see that that a lot of departments in the fire service, as a whole, are being proactive now. I know in Jersey City, if there's anything that resembles a traumatic event, they give you the opportunity. That company or the couple guys that were involved in it, they give them that opportunity right away, talk about it, to tell them, if you're feeling worse in a couple of weeks, they give them the whole avenue of what they could do. So they're kind of proactive with it, which I think is great, rather than being reactive. You know what? I think this PTSD, this has to be proactive, and not reactive.
Well, don't you feel, Butch, that most of the guys, I had a captain do it once who I love this captain, one of my toughest 30+ year truck guys. We had a bad month and we had a car we had a lot of bad calls. And on this particular shift, we had a car drive off in the lake with 7 occupants. We ended up with 6 drownings. We had divers in the water within 4 minutes. I had 5 helicopters on the ground, 6 month through 33-year-old, 6 CPRs on the pier at once. And when we went to do the diffusing with the team, this cap says, "I'm not going there. I don't need this shit. I am not going there. You can't make me." I go, "I can't order you in there." And so he went through this whole tough guy thing, and I love him. He's a great guy. And Butch, I went and got him about 10 minutes. I said, "Come here for a second." I said, I won't say his name. I go, "Look, I need you to do me both a professional as your chief and a personal favor. You need to walk back in that day room and tell your guys, hey, look, come here for a second. Look, we just had a bad day. This is still the greatest job in the world, but that was me just running my mouth. You know what? 35 years ago, if we would have had this kind of counseling, I don't know how many guys would have kept from alcoholism, drug abuse, divorce.
Yeah.
This is a good thing. We're going in there." I said, "You go in there, and when they sit down, say, so would anybody like to start off?" You say, "You know what? I think it sucks. Little kids dying sucks, and I want to talk about this. Is the reason it bothers me because." And he did this, and I said, because those young guys, they just heard one of their idols, their captain, say, "I don't need this shit." You think they're going to ask for help? And he goes, "You're right." And he made a difference. Sometimes I've said this before, when a tough guy says, "I don't need that shit," they actually told Butch, "I need it," right? When they say, "I don't need it," and they put up this big front, they're actually telling you, actually, I do need it, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And that you got to recognize that. One of the examples I use of what happened in the past and what happens now is, I was at a fire in a 2.5-story frame with, and I was only on a job of maybe 3 years, 4 years, and I had another guy who had less time, Jimmy Early, turned out to be a great captain and a great firefighter. And we get into this 2.5-story frame, people yelling about the girl up in the attic apartment, blah, 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 attic bedroom. And we get up there with the line, we're crawling in. We wanted to get, to the stairs, to the attic. And the roof caves in, the ceiling comes down as we're pinned flat. And we can hear the fire burning above us. We can't move. We're like, we can't get to the nozzle. My mask is at my side, Rick, because I wasn't going to put it on until I really needed it. And I was worried. I mean, really worried. And in a matter of, it seemed like 20 minutes, but in a matter of just, maybe less than a minute, I could feel the rubble kind of moving a little bit. and somebody grabs my boots, and it was Lieutenant Jack Duffy, and he pulls me out, and I get out, and and I'm kind of shaking, and he crawls back in, and he grabs Jimmy, he drags him out, and what happened was this other fireman, Mike Lynch, had gotten in there enough to, on his hands and knees, to raise the debris enough just to get a flat body out. And they pulled us both out, and Jack and Mike got awards, and Jack got something from the state, and blah blah blah. But you know what? When the incident was over, Jimmy and I went downstairs. The medics, I don't know if there were medics back then, might have been, came over, and there had been some stuff on our ears. We had some burns, but 30 minutes later, we're back in the firehouse, high-fiving each other, laughing.
Yeah.
Oh, Jimmy wasn't it? That was great. Blah blah blah. And just it was like, oh, it was great. We got trapped. Our lives got saved. Well, I went home that night and turned totally different. I didn't tell my wife. I just sat there. I don't think I said a word until the next morning. I went back to work. But when I got home, it was like, holy shit! I said, you know what? There's a chance we couldn't get out of there. But it was. That's how we talked about it. High fiving and but nowadays, if that same situation would happen, you'd be off duty. You'd be treated. Somebody would meet you at the hospital to talk to you about it. You'd have counseling. So the change is so much better now. And I use those examples in my program of kind of how it used to be, and it really can't be like that anymore. If your department acts like that in a situation like that, then you're doing the wrong thing. You got to be proactive. You got to get this off your chest. Talk about it.
Well, don't you think, Butch, that some of the high-fiving and some of the adrenaline afterwards is actually a release for a lot of guys? A lot of people, I've had to explain how many times you can stand outside as a chief and the family stand next to you, and you hear your guys inside laughing and high-fiving. You try to explain to family, they're not excited because your house just burned. That's a release of that energy, that adrenaline rush, because they just faced a pretty tough enemy and won. You're alive and your family's okay, that kind of thing. Don't you think some of that's just masking? It's almost, well, I don't say masking, it's a release. It's that energy, and that's where good bosses are paying attention. They're going, yeah, they're in there high-fiving, but I need to talk to each one of them. And I think that's where we fail, right? A lot of chiefs, a lot of bosses, a lot of company officers, they go to a bad call, and I'll ask, so have you talked to him? Yeah, he's okay. No, wait a minute. Did you give him a call at home the next day when they're away from the firehouse? Did you follow up? If you're truly that brother or sister, we always talk about, it's easy to take care of in the firehouse, right? Manage the consequences of other people's actions. Slow down, put your seatbelt on, get a backer, put your face piece on, put your face piece back on. We're in too far. But what about when they're away from the firehouse? You said it before, the follow-up with your own guys, reaching out and talking to them and just making that phone call. And, that could be the difference maker, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's all about awareness now. And I think that's pretty much what my program it tries to do. That one, be aware of the people around you and how they're acting, especially if there is a traumatic event. Two, and I think, which is really important, there's hope. There's so much out there now that the way you feel, it doesn't have to last forever, but it's up to you. If you don't take the first step, or if somebody doesn't come and push you into the first step, it's going to go on, but it doesn't have to last forever. There's too much out there now. And I'm a prime example of it. Yeah.
Butch, is the same thing when you've had to hook someone up that's done something stupid, or they had a dependency problem, the drugs or alcohol. I said it before. I had a guy who threatened my family that I had to fire. Well, he fired himself. And during the hearing, during the lawsuit, he lost everything. I mean, he did horrible things with people, and yet there's firefighters that think he's like walks on water. I'm like, what, I don't know how you say that, but anyway, I said it. They go, what do you think? I wish I would have had him as a rookie. I wish I would have had him as a probie. I wish I would have had him then to walk him down that path. There was no parenting, there was no leadership, there was no supervision. Somebody just, John says it all the time. Colin Powell's quote, never walk past a mistake. And you walked past this mistake for 22 years and never did nothing to take care of it. So I think there's a lot of people, like you say, that if we had said something sooner or been the boss that we wanted to be, what they say, everybody wants to be the lion till it's time to do lion shit, to take care of business, right?
Yeah. It's I'm just glad that it's gotten to where it is now. You know, not that it's a buzzword, but it's just, you know, everybody's aware now. I think the awareness is going to save people's lives, really. Just like, you know, just like firemen, what we do daily, save people's lives. Well, there's enough information out there and enough awareness that it could save your life. And I'm hoping that, you know, the whole point of this is just be aware of what's going on. You know, there's people out there every day that have changed a little bit. Recognize that and try to reach out. And for yourself, if you're strong enough, take that step. Take that step. Pick up the phone, talk to somebody, get the process started. Because, like I said, there's hope. There is definite hope.
And John, you've got 2 Marines in your family. You've got a son who's a major, is in MARSOC in their special forces and has deployed. I mean, there's, you know, James would never tell you, he's like Butch about his medals. He, you know, he's not that kind of guy. He's a great leader, but he's been through some pretty tough situations. You've got 2 Marines. You have you know, there's one son's a Marine and a firefighter. I know you're a huge advocate, you know, having been with the FTOI all those years and with South Blooming Grove, you know, how important, and from your end, is it, like Butch said, to actually make that first phone call and ask to talk to someone, or, you know, because we've talked about a lot of times it's not even fire department related. There's things going on at home that doesn't take away any of the importance of the fact that someone is having issues, and then they go to that one bad call and that triggers it. You know, John, you've talked about that, about being more proactive before, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I remember, now that I'm hearing Butch talk about it, I remember back when I was a young lieutenant in 17 Engine, we had a couple of incidents back then, and boom, bang, boom, it just got handled. It got handled very quickly by the job, which I was actually pretty shocked back then, because, you know, PTSD and recognizing it and having some, not solutions for it, but some treatments for it, wasn't really very popular back then. I'm talking 30, 35 years ago. And today as well. And it really highlights the point that it's so important to have people like Butch around, guys that have established reputations in the fire service or in the PD or in the military, you know, or wherever it is. I mean, nurses, think about nurses, what they see, the stuff that goes on in emergency rooms, and you know, EMT people out on the street, medical, right? It's important to have, number one, it's important for your organization to have it set up, right? It's got to be available. You got to have it on a you know, either people that are part of your organization that do it, part of your medical division, or they got to have a contract with an agency that does it in town. But it's got to be already set up. It can't be something that some captain or some chief is on the phone calling up saying, "Hey, we had a really bad situation. I got a couple of guys that are taking it real hard. You know, well, can we have them? Well, okay, chief, we'll look into it and see if we can find somebody." That's not what you want to hear. You want to hear, "Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Give me their names and their phone numbers. We'll contact them. That's how we do it." And you hear that there are so many places that have it. Number one. Number two, when you start talking to people like the 3 of us and a lot of our listeners, I'm sure as well, if you're involved in training and seminars and teaching, you hear about it a lot, because there's always somebody. You know, there's Dina Alley and others in the fire service that write for, you know, engineering and teach and train and travel around. It's so wonderful that there are people out there able to do it, because everybody is not able to do what Butch can do. Even guys that have his credentials, even guys that have benefited from maybe receiving that themselves, like teaching. There are guys that are great firefighters that really couldn't teach too well. There are guys that are great recipients and great and promoters of treatment of PTSD that really wouldn't know how to get the ball rolling. So it's good that we all have it set up in our organizations, you know, ready to go.
Yeah, it goes back to the proactiveness that never was there before. And we're always kind of late sometimes. And I'll say this, we're not dinging the fire service if you're listening. We've come a long ass way with this in a proactive manner. Chief Bobby Halton, God rest Bobby. Bobby was a huge advocate, changed our whole magazine and FDIC around to where we became advocates of mental health awareness. But Butch, I know you got to run. John's been playing grandpa with his well, not 157 grandkids like Mickey Conboy, but I think he's got 77 now. But Butch, if they wanted to get a hold of you to do your program, if they want to get a hold of you and say, Chief Cobb, who is the chief at Jersey City that I can maybe reach out that would send me maybe their policies in Jersey City for PTSD, for, you know, critical incident stress, because it's already out there. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. What's a good email for you, brother, if they want to reach out to you?
Well, I'm on, and John's going to yell at me. I'm not a social media guy. I'm not on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, and it's on Instagram. It's Rescue Boss 1270. RESQ BOSS 1270. RESQ BOSS 1270. My email address is rescueboss@hotmail.com, and it's RESQ BOSS@hotmail.com. Yeah, if anybody's interested, you know. So anyway, that's.
I don't care. I don't care if you're not interested. You need to be getting a hold of Butch Cobb. All right. You need to be getting a hold of Chief Cobb. You know, like I said, wake up, smell the coffee, and do the right thing for your people. So, Butchie, John, any closing thoughts before Butchie's got to leave in about 3 minutes here? Any closing thoughts?
No, nothing much. I got a couple of screaming people here. I'm gonna have to go investigate in a minute.
Real quick, Butch, I want to throw this out here to our listeners. There's several great programs and entities and agencies in the fire service that can help you out. You know, the National Volunteer Fire Council has the Share the Load program. So you go to the National Volunteer Fire Council. The Firefighter Behavioral Health Alliance, Jeff Deal was the founder. Their website is ffbha.org. Firefighter Behavioral Health Alliance. They have little bifold cards you carry in your wallet that have phone numbers. They have the top 5 behavioral health issues, suicide signs affecting firefighters and EMS professionals, and then they have the top 5 steps to assist your brother or sister. So ffbha.org. There's plenty of places. Reach out to Chief Cobb. Butch, John and I can't thank you enough. Dude, you're awesome. Like I said, I love you to death. You'll always have a very special place in my heart. And what you're doing now, what you've been doing for years, what you're doing now is incredible. And people need to take you up on your offer and come out and share your story, teach a program for them. And I love you, buddy. And my best to you. I was excited, John. I was like, we got to get Butch on the show. You know how he talks. I'm like, okay, John, we're getting show. So
thanks. It meant a lot. And like I said, I wouldn't have started talking about this program with anybody else other than you and him. You know, like John mentioned, we just clicked. You know, a million years ago, John and I just clicked one day, doing something for Firehouse, and the same thing with you and I. We just clicked, and I'll tell you, the first thing I learned from you, I learned a lot from you, but the first thing I learned from you was we were having lunch somewhere, and I think it was in Texas, and I had just met you, and I had a stain on my shirt. And you remember what you told me? You pulled out this pen thing and you cleaned my. That's the first thing I learned from you. How to clean a stain off a shirt before you go speak.
Well, because I'm the worst, John. I talk about it. I could have a guy 6 tables away from me eating pasta, and I'll get splashed with his sauce on my white Chief shirt. I'm like, I had more Tide stick pens and stuff.
Yeah, I carried 2 or 3 of them in my bag every since. Thank you for that, Rick.
Butch, thank God. Butch, thank you so much, John. You got some goodbyes for Butch?
Yeah, have a good one. I mean, Butch and I don't talk as often as you, but we talk pretty regular. And you know, I don't know how often it is. It's, you know, a couple of times a week or whatever. Sometimes we miss each other, but yes, we'll be catching up soon.
Oh,
yeah.
Well,
Good,
thanks for sharing your story, Butch, so much. To our viewers, you can get a hold of John at chiefjohnsalka@gmail.com. You can get a hold of me at chieflasky@gmail.com. We're on all the social media stuff. And we end our shows always asking you to please, especially on Old School, the Command Post of Fire Engineer Hump Day Hangouts, please keep the men and women in our armed forces in your thoughts and prayers. And remember, never forgetting means never forgetting. Take care. We'll catch you next time, and God bless all of you.
Thanks, Rick.
Take care, Butch.
Take care, John. Talk to you soon.